So the pay gap between women and men has been an issue since the beginning of time. It's an issue in almost all fields of work, but the one place that it's undeniable is in women's soccer. Now, this gap is still very large in almost all sports. In basketball, the men make an average of 2.5 million a year, with the minimum for them being 525,000. Now, the women's maximum salary in the NBA is $109,000. This is almost 5 times lower than the men's minimum salary. Now, I know athletes make an absurd amount of money in general compared to the average population, but that's a problem for another day. Today, we need to make baby steps in this fight, and I think the first step in fixing the wage gap is to fix the women's soccer players' pay. Now, women's soccer players should get paid just as much as the men. The women's NWSL, which stands for the National Women's Soccer League, their pay cap is $265,000. The men's league in America is over $3 million per team. Now, when the U.S. women won the World Cup in 2015, their reward money was $2 million. When Germany's men's team won in 2014, their reward money was $35 million. The men's teams that got knocked out in the round of 16, they all received $8 million just for participation, which is 4 times the amount of what the women got for winning. So basically, the women are making 6 cents for almost every dollar that a male soccer player makes. And this is just the U.S. women's team, who is the most successful women's team in the world. Think of how much less the women's teams in Europe and other countries around the world are making. In the Women's World Cup, there is 15 million in reward money for the teams, total. So all of the teams in the World Cup, there's only $15 million to go around. In the men's, there's over 38 million for all the teams. That is less than 3% of what the men are getting. In 2015, the U.S. women produced $20 million more in revenue than the U.S. men's team. The women have a total of 4 gold medals, and they have won 3 of the 7 World Cup titles. The U.S. men have never won a World Cup. The women even ended up breaking the record for the most watched game in America in the 2015 World Cup final with a total of 25.4 million views. So even after all of this, why are the women still barely making anything compared to what the men are making? Former U.S. goalkeeper Hope Solo said, "We are the best in the world. We have 3 World Cup championships and 4 Olympic championships. The men get paid more to show up than we get paid to win major championships." And this is true. To try and fix this, the U.S. women's team in 2015 filed a lawsuit against the U.S. Soccer Federation in federal court for a gender-based employment discrimination. This case has been dragged on into 2019 and is still going on. There is a Equal Pay Act that prohibits employers from wage discrimination on a basis of sex unless they can prove there is a lawful reason for the wide disparity in pay. Now, there's no way that they will be able to provide a lawful reason for this large of a pay gap. So why is the trial still going on? This trial is potentially the solution to this issue, but there needs to be more media coverage and attention on this issue in the trial. If the women end up winning this case, it's a step in fixing the pay gap all across sports, and eventually, once it covers all the sports, it'll go into everyday jobs. Gender pay gap has been a large issue that has never gone away. Eventually, the women's soccer players will get equal pay, and then it'll lead to basketball, and then other sports, and then engineers, and then nurses. And soon, all the women will have equal pay as the men in their fields. People need to be more aware of this large gap, and there needs to be more of an uproar about it. If we just stay quiet, things will never change. In 2014, when asked if when the women will get equal pay, the FIFA Secretary General refused to answer because it was nonsense. He said, "We are still another 23 World Cups away before potentially women should receive the same amount as men." So basically, if it were up to a lot of large political figures in our world today, which sadly it is, women would end up getting equal pay until 2107. Let's not let that happen. Let's draw some attention to this issue and force change.